Welcome back to the Reinvention Channel. This is Vidette Vanderweide, your host of the Reinvention Channel here at VidetteV.com, and I want to welcome you back to another spectacular show. And today I'm bringing you one of my personal friends, Nancy Smeltzer, who I met at a retreat last year, and she has just rocked my world with some of her nuggets and her knowledge. But let me give you her official bio, and then we're going to move forward to our chat so you can be opened up to some interesting things that'll make you think a little bit differently. So Nancy is a long-distance spiritual healer and coach who's been working on her spiritual path for over 8 years. Her specialty is working with those who are frustrated with repeating patterns of behavior and want to break free of them to live the life of their dreams. That sounds awesome. Through her research in the unconscious, she's been shown by the divine how to help hundreds of people by offering practical, easily implementable solutions to deal with client issues. Her take is that by removing the underlying unknown blocks of resistance to change, clients will move to the optimal and fulfilling life they've always knew there was available but didn't know how to achieve. You can see more of Nancy over at transitionportals.com, and she also has an art website, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But first, I want to welcome Nancy to our show. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Vidette. Thanks for having me on. I can't wait to talk to you.
I know. Thanks for being here. It was so exciting to have you. So tell us a little bit about your journey and how you became the coach that you are today.
It's quite circuitous. I was a 7th grade science teacher for 27 years, and I taught scientific method, and if it wasn't repeatable and measurable, then it didn't count. And so I would read these amazing stories of other people who would have these spiritual journeys and intuitive insights, and I'd go, wow, that would be really cool to experience. But I figured you had to be born knowing how to do that. Then in 2004, I had a big epiphany at a retreat where I was, and I started on my spiritual path and very quickly realized, no, I wasn't born knowing how to do a lot of these things this lifetime. But in utero, we all know this. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, very quickly, we forget it at birth or soon afterwards. And so it took me about 3 weeks to learn how to hear intuitively, which for me was kind of surprising because for me, my sense of hearing is my least developed physical sense. And then about 4 months before I started to be able to see clearly.
Wow.
And so I use those skills when I'm helping my clients clear whatever needs to be cleared.
Okay, so I've had a few different notes here that I've taken as you talk just on that to keep this conversation rolling forward. So there's a lot of things I want to delve into. First, your background in education was very left brain, very, math and linear and, things add up to things, And what we're talking about is very right brain, the intuitive gifts that we have. So can you talk a little bit about your epiphany? So if someone's watching this, might be like, what is my epiphany that makes me realize I do have these gifts? Can you talk a little bit about that?
I attended a workshop that was being offered at a retreat. And in the workshop, there were very specific tools on, actually, we first cleared birth. And what a big breakthrough to realize, I can go back and re-experience my own birth and clean things up. Oh, well, that's not what they taught me in science class.
Yeah.
And so it's been, each person will find their breakthrough. For me, it was a big aha. But for other people, it comes in little slow pieces. It just depends.
So in what I love that you said too, I wrote down because I think this is a very common and it was common for me too, is seeing intuitive people or hearing intuitive people and or hearing about them or hiring them. You think they have special gifts that I don't have, so I have to go out to find the answers to my deepest challenges or my deepest questions. But you said when you realize that, hey, I have this intuitive gift, we all have this intuitive gift, and then it took you 3 weeks to learn how to hear your intuition. So talk a little bit about some of the tools or the strategies you use to kind of break open into that gift that you had?
Well, back then, I was working with a mentor, and so I was taking lessons. Now, what I do when I'm working with clients is I teach them what I call Gaia commands. They're mantras or phrases that we all heard in utero. And if there's trauma associated with it, then by going back and saying the phrase over and over again, it's a very easy way to clean up whatever needs to happen. And so you were talking about us all having intuitive skills, and that's my take, is that it's pretty much socialized out of us by the time we're 5 or 6 years old. Your parents or other kids will go, well, that's cute, right? I'm not hearing that. And people just learn, oh, I don't want to be different. And so they turn the switch off. And so it's not a matter, it is a matter of relearning what you already knew. Now, obviously, some people are going to be better at certain aspects of it than others. I have one colleague who cannot see, hear, feel, what is usually called kinesthetic intuitiveness. She can't do any of those. What she's doing is sending out waves on the electromagnetic spectrum and getting information back like a bat does in echolocation. It took us a really long time to develop that for her.
Yeah.
But and just like some people are better athletes or some people are better artists, people are going to be better at different aspects of intuitive ability, but we've all got some way to get intuitive information if you're open to it.
That's a really great point, because when you said that it took you 4 months to kind of see, intuitively, I in my mind was like, ooh, I want to be able to see, because I don't see anything. I feel, and I don't want to say I hear. It's not like a voice. It's just I get words or ideas. And so that's my gift that I have developed. But yet, when I hear someone like yourself saying you see things, I'm like, ooh, I want to see things. But I love what you just said, is we all have our way of receiving our intuitive hits. But it's the way I look at it is it's like a muscle, our intuition. And if we don't exercise our muscles, we atrophy, they go floppy. And so does our intuition. But with a little help and some tools, those things can really beef up our intuition and the messages that we receive from wherever you think they come from. I think they come from God, but
I would add to that 4 months was 8 to 10 hours a day.
Oh boy.
It was not. It was not. I was I just dove in passionately to this experience. It was like I always knew that there was something out there, and so I really, really spent a lot of time on it. Fortunately, I've learned faster ways to teach clients, so it doesn't necessarily take that long. There will be some people who will never be able to see intuitively, because my take is that's the contract they signed on for this lifetime.
Right.
And so what I always tell my clients is you can ask for anything, set your intent, but then be willing to surrender control over, I want it to be that way.
Yeah.
And it's like the divine has the big game plan,
right.
And there's probably a million things that would be even better for you never even had thought of.
Yeah.
So by surrendering control over it has to be a certain way, you get so much more.
I think that's a message. That was a message right to me, because that's one of the things that I work on. I think you and I have talked about that, about the surrendering part and allowing it to come in a different way than I think it may come, or that I have in my head that it should come. So that was definitely a really big golden nugget. And if it was missed, rewind this interview and go back. But just know that kind of wanting and desiring and setting the intention to have it, whether it's your intuitive gifts, whether it's that car or that house, it's having the desire, releasing it, knowing it can come in any different way. It doesn't necessarily come with how you think you're going to get it. So what else, when you work with clients, what are some of the reasons they're coming to you outside? Because in your bio, you help release some of the stuff that's getting in the way of their intuition and for them living their dreams. So when someone calls you and says, I think I need your help, what typically are they looking to get from you, or the result that they're looking to get?
Well, usually the presenting symptom or the reason why they walk in the door. I'm doing all this over the phone.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why they come to me, big multitude of reasons, everything from obsessive compulsive disorder,
Mm-hmm.
addictions, overeating, my relationship
Mm-hmm.
is awful, bipolar, I'm going out of body, I just want, some people just want to learn, teach me what you know. And so what's interesting is what's bringing them in the door is not the real issue.
Right.
It's what gets them in.
Right.
But usually there's like 3 or 4, 5, 6, 27 layers down. That's where the real issue is.
Yeah.
And so I spoke about stuck energy in the unconscious mind. That's my take is that's where the problem is, that there's trauma that's associated with stuck energy. It gets tucked away in our unconscious mind, reptilian brain. And 95% of our decisions are made in our unconscious.
Yeah.
It may take as long as 10 to 12 seconds before it comes into your conscious mind, if at all. And so if that's where you're operating from, then you may say you want one thing, like you want to lose weight, or you want to start a new business, or whatever, and your reptilian brain's going, no way, we're not doing that. And so by finding those unconscious blocks, that's where I can help my clients, because if it's in your unconscious, it's unconscious.
Mm-hmm. So I want to go back to you making the transition from math teacher to energy healer, really. How does one make that complete radical change in what I call a reinvention of your life?
Well, actually, I was a science teacher, although I did...
Science, sorry. Where did I get math? I don't know. Math is going in my head. I don't know.
Well,
sorry.
I did teach math also, but
okay.
It was science. But I was retired.
Mm-hmm.
I had the luxury of being able to spend 8 to 10 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I just decided that's what I want to do. And so I put the time and the commitment in. I worked with some colleagues, and we started a business. And with practice, you just start, it's like any kind of training. You develop certain skills. Oh, okay, this is bipolar. Oh, certain conditions will have a certain taste to me in my mouth.
Wow.
It's like, okay, no, that's... And it looks just awful on video. I'm sitting here.
No, whatever works, man. That's awesome. I've never heard of that. That's awesome. That's why I love you.
Certain things will taste a certain way.
Interesting.
Or I'll get prickles.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain heroin addicts have this icy, piercy, sound to them.
What I love, what you just said was that you didn't say it in these words, but you just kind of got started. You didn't wait for your gifts to be completely perfect, because they never will be, but they are developing every day because you are working with them, with your gifts. And so for someone who might be watching this, who might say, I feel like I have these gifts, or I want to work with someone, but I have to wait to retire. I have to wait to everything is perfect to even get started with using my gifts. What do you say to that? And what advice do you give to someone who might be thinking that?
I would team up with someone first.
Mm-hmm.
Until recently, I was working with 2 other people, and so the 3 of us would be on the phone at the same time. Team up with some people, get some, in shamanic terms or in tracking, it's called dirt time.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually, you're not physically down on your knees inspecting the world, but you're putting the time in. Mm. And so pair up with someone who you respect and do trades if that's what if that's what you want to do. It's a good way to get your feet wet and see if that's really what you want to do, because it's a very big commitment. Mm-hmm. You don't know what the divine is going to ask you to do to go further on in your work. And so by, having someone else is this real? Am I seeing things this way? To get feedback at first is just for me was just critical, because that's one of the hardest things, is believing what you're receiving is real.
Right. True. Very true. What is, and I want to go back to that, what is the most challenging thing you've been asked to do by the divine that you've thought, I can't handle this, but you did handle?
How long do we have? Actually, I'm writing a blog about this next week. One of them is, one of the early ones was, I had to go and fall from the 423rd dimension backwards.
Holy crap.
I
don't even know what that means, but that's awesome.
I had to go way out there in the universe and just launch myself backwards. And I'm afraid of falling, because I was on crutches a lot as a child. Mm-hmm. And so that was a really big deal. And so I'm falling, and I'm falling, I'm still falling inside of me. And I was scared to death. And I was really mad. Like, this is stupid, was some of the kinder things I said. And then, who's going to feed the cats? And my mother. And who's going to find me? I'm going to be sitting in this chair forever. And then, well, fine, I'll just do it. And then about the time where I stopped saying, well, fine, and well, okay, I guess I'm just going to fall forever, and reach true acceptance. I flipped over, soared to the bottom, landed, ta-da, and went, okay, why, what, what was that about? Normally I can tell, usually immediately, what the lesson was about. Then the next longest time period is, maybe it'll take a week. Mm-hmm. This is the longest ever. It took a year. And I was learning about free falling into the heart of the divine. It's a process that I teach my clients about, really opening up your sacred heart and being one with God, the divine, however you see yourself, whatever the higher part of yourself is. And it was about free falling into the heart of the divine. And I wouldn't have been able to do it if I hadn't experienced that very, very scary lesson a year before.
Right. Wow. A year, huh? That's a cliffhanger for you. Thanks.
I just stuck it on the back shelf and went.
So you did exactly what you said earlier. You asked the question, set the intention, and then you released it, knowing it would come to you, and it did. It always does. It always does.
It always does. It just, are you willing to wait?
Yes.
And not sit around and be grumpy about it hasn't shown up yet. Just
right.
Wait.
Okay, that was a message to me. Don't be grumpy while you're waiting for it to show up. Note to self. So how has this work changed your life and changed how you show up in life?
It's been some big changes. I don't know if I've lost, if you could say lost friends, or just some people don't see life the same way, so we don't have anything in common anymore. Mm-hmm. And at first that was bad, but then it was, were they really my true friends?
Right.
My family does not particularly understand what I do, so I just don't talk to them about it.
Right.
The time and effort and hours that I put in, countless ones. Mm-hmm. But the rewards to me are so worth it. I get up every day excited about, what am I going to get shown today? Mm-hmm. And usually I'll get shown something new right before I get a new client who's got the exact need. I needed that little piece of information for.
So a couple things that you just shared that I wrote down, and I think it's something that's very common in just, not necessarily what I'm going to say is our line of work, but just when you're an entrepreneur and you're building your purpose, you're growing into your purpose, it's very natural to kind of have friends fall away we don't have the same conversations anymore, we don't have the same interests anymore, and whatever the perception is, it just happens. And I think that's I'm glad you said that, because I think that's something to be expected if somebody's watching this who's exploring, really growing, making the decision to grow into who they are and release a lot of the stuff that's been holding them back, and to work with someone like yourself to develop gifts that they have. There has to be some expectation that it's not going to be an easy ride sometimes, and our relationships are going to shift. You don't talk about to your family, you said, and sometimes there's things that I don't talk to my family about because I know they don't understand it, and I don't really want their opinions on it or their perceptions. It just is what it is. So I love that you shared that, because I think that's an important facet of really stepping into our gifts. Whatever those gifts are, it can be uncomfortable at times, but as you said, it's one of the most fulfilling things to be able to wake up every day and be like, "Ooh, what do I get to do today?" That in itself is such a life changer and very uncommon in today's world. So yes, there are things that we have to give up in order to be able to say, "What do I get to do today?" Instead of, "I have to go to work." It's not work. I heard someone say yesterday on Twitter, they said it's called play-ork. It's play and work. It's like, I love that word because I don't like calling it work. Because work to me is when I was working in the corporate world and I'd get up with that anxiety in my chest. So what is one last golden nugget that you want to share? Well, let's first, before we ask for the last golden nugget, talk about your art, because what you do as far as your expression of art to me is so magnificent, and I want people to understand how you are tapping into every ounce of your right brain with what you do for work and in art. So talk about your art as well.
I'm a professional art quilter. I've been doing it since 1982, and I'm the self-proclaimed button and bead queen of Maryland here in the United States. I heavily embellish my art quilt with buttons and beads, and when the work is going well, I'm breathing into it, and it's breathing into me. We're one and the same. Mm-hmm. And it's often like what athletes will talk about with regard to being in the zone, mm-hmm. that things just flow freely, you don't have to think about it, things just happen, hours go by, it's like, oh, whoa, wow. Mm-hmm. You're not thinking, you're just being with the art. And so I've started a new series of art quilts called Meditation Art, in which I tap into a person's energy field. I see the image of what would be the perfect place for them to meditate and to be in, mm-hmm. and then I create it, and they're getting incredible responses because people, and on my website there's a list of these guided commands or phrases that people can say, so they too can be part of that energy field.
Very cool. What is that website again, Nancy? Your art website?
The art website is Fiber Fantasies, the American spelling FIBER, mm-hmm. FANTASIES.com. Okay. The website, and then the blog is /WordPress.
Okay, so I'll have those links on the page, but I just wanted to talk about that because my impression is if you are feeling stuck maybe in some area, you turn to the quilting in order to kind of open yourself up. Is that correct? And if so, talk a little bit about that process, because you just said you'll start to get ideas and things will start to flow.
Art has always been an escape for me. Even when I was teaching, I would come home and my fingers get itchy if I don't sew after a couple of days. It's like, I need my and it's that connection that I've got with that energy or spirit that I can instantly and easily dive into when I'm working on my artwork. Mm-hmm. That it's a physical form of meditation.
Yes. Thank you for saying that, because I think some people might say, well, I can't meditate, I can't stay quiet, but there's so many different forms of meditation, and for you it's art, for many it's art, for some it's music, for some it's going and sitting on the beach listening to the waves. So there's many different ways to separate from the anxiety or from stuckness and open yourself up to the ideas and the solutions to that stuckness. So along with help, of course. So what's any last minute gold nuggets you wanna offer our audience who might see this and might say, I'm just feeling stuck? Give them like one tangible thing that they could do right now to feel unstuck or feel less anxiety.
Well, I do want to put it out there. The reason why they're feeling stuck is not a character flaw,
Yeah.
or that it is not because they haven't tried. It's because of that stuck energy in your unconscious mind. And so a phrase that I would offer for you just to repeat when you're stuck in the grocery line or in traffic is to surrender and release. Mm. Surrender and release. And about that cadence, that's about the cadence that I'm hearing it from Gaia, which for me is the divine feminine. Surrender and release. And you don't have to worry about, I want to surrender X, you know. The divine knows. You don't just, you know, you don't have to give a list. Just surrender and release. It's an amazing way to sink into your inner core and ground yourself.
I love that. I love that last thought. We don't have to bullet point our issues and our problems to release. We just need to surrender and release. And I find that almost everything in my own evolution and my own spiritual journey I've found that it's much easier than I make it. So, you know, because I'm the one that would be bullet pointing, dear God, here's exactly what I need to release and here's exactly what I want. But surrender and release to my highest good really covers everything.
And the divine has the big game plan.
Yeah.
Why should you worry with the details when all you have to do is turn it over?
Love it. So thank you, Nancy, for sharing your guidance, your golden nuggets, and your experience with your spiritual journey. Because I know just being around you, and we've had a couple of retreats together where we've been able to learn from each other, and it's been so interesting learning from you, because you're, you know, like I'm here on my spiritual path and you're like way up here. So the things that come out of your mouth sometimes I'm like, what is she saying? But darn, it was good. It takes me some time to process where you are, but yet it takes me time to catch up to some of the thoughts that you have. But they're beautiful thoughts, and they're pretty transformational thoughts. But it takes me some time to digest them. And so for all of you out there, viewers who might see this, who might feel like they need some help with getting that energy and stuff, or really tapping into your divine gifts, Nancy is definitely someone to turn to. She's got these gifts that I believe she was given to us for a reason. And if you're seeing this and kind of feeling any kind of compelling emotion to contact her, you can go to transitionportals.com. And if you want to look at Nancy's fabulous art, go to the fiberfantasies.com, because they are some incredible pieces of art. I'm floored every time I watch you sew those teeny little beads on. It floors me, but you do these, and there's thousands and thousands of beads on one of your pieces of work. So it's a very intricate gift that you have. So Nancy, thank you.